Okay, assalamu alaikum shabab. So let's continue with where we stopped. I went through the mapping of EER, and we say the best mapping is make this one a table. Make this one a table of 2 columns. This one also another table of 2 columns. This one is also a table of 2 columns. If you do that, you will always be okay and always be correct. So the first column is SSN, SSN here, also SSN here. The second column here is typing speed. The second column is T grade. The second column here is engineering type. Here I would have 7 columns, which is this one, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And I showed you different ways to do it. So this is what we did last week. Is that clear for you, Shabab? Any questions? Okay, so let's go now to this. What about if I have this? Now this is a union. If I have a union, what do I do? This is what you will do. First of all, this will be a table. So I will have a table called person. I will have a table called bank. And I will have a table called company. So this is how you map them, Shabab. If you have a union, this is a union, Shabab, or a category or union. This is how you do them. So make this one a table, make this one a table, make this one a table. But the only thing is you have to add a column here. Let's call this column is, for this is because we want to, who owns what car. So these are cars, Shabab, cars and trucks, and these are the owners. Okay, these are the properties, and these are the owners. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add an extra column here, an extra column here, an extra column here. So this, for example, this table has how many columns? 1, 2, 3, 4. So we already have 4 columns here. What about for the banks? We already have 2 columns here. One is called bank name, the other one is called bank address. What about for the company? We already have 2 columns here. Now, to make an owner, what we have to do is we have to create a common column to these 3. So how do we do that one? We add an extra column here, so there will be 5 columns instead of 4. I will add another column here, 3, so there will be what? There will be 1 more column here, and there will be 1 more column here. So there will also be 3 here. So plus 1 column, So plus 1 column here, plus 1 column here. Now the name of this column must be the same as the name of this column, must be the same as the name of this column. The type also, they have to be the same type, okay? But also this has to be unique. The numbers which we are going to put here must be unique. Also they must be unique, Let's call this column ziyada, مثلا in this case, let's call it owner ID, OID, owner ID, سميها. So this is owner ID, this is also owner ID, the same name, give it the same name. Also call this one owner ID. It's 1 column that you added, the extra column that you just added. So make sure it is unique here, it's also unique here, it's also unique here. Then what do? You go to this table, which is, this is a union. You create a column, 2 columns for this one. The first column is also called owner ID. So I'm going to call it owner ID. And we are going to bring all the values which were here, plus the values which are here, plus the values which are here, the one I just added, I will put them here. So if I have 10 here, 10 here, and 10 here, I will have 30 rows here. And the other column is the table, whether it is a person table or the bank table or the company table. Okay, so which type, okay, of OID, this one. So I will have 30 of them. So I like to know each one of them came from which table. Is it came from the person table? Is it came from the bank table? Is it came from the company table? So for those which I'm going to copy from here, I'm going to put them here, and then I will put person in this second column. For those ones, I'm going to copy here. I'm going to write here bank, 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 bank. And for those, I'm going to copy here. I'm going to write company, company, company. So this is how I map this, and this. Any question how I did it to this four, ya shabab? Any question how I mapped this four into separate tables?
Yes, doctor.
Yes, what's the question?
What if I had an ID for the owner?
No, this table you created, it never existed, Hadi. Good question, Hadi. A table, Hadi, it all. You added this table now. This شفت entity هذا, this entity was not there at all. This entity is a new entity that you added to union this one, but it never existed before.
Okay.
Before this, you only have 6 tables. What are the 6 tables? Person table, bank table, company table. Also, you have another one called car table and what? And truck table. 5 tables. هذا اللي عندك بس. But you have so many relationships. عندك relationship بين هذا وهذا, بين هذا وهذا, بين هذا. So many relationships. So what I'm telling you is get rid of all the relationship and just add one entity here and call this one owner. Add one column here, one column here, one column here, and put distinct values into them and then put them into this new table. So this table owner is a new one. It's going to replace all these relationships. But before that one, it doesn't exist. I don't know whether you got my idea or لا.
Yes, yeah. I got it. It's not like the disjoint or the overlap that we break it down.
No, it's not. You're right. It's not. Yeah, you just created this one because before this one, this is what you had. You had a relationship between hada and hada. You had a relationship between hada and hada. You had a relationship between hada and hada, and so on. 200 relationship. So what you did was, okay, let me get rid of all this relationship. Okay, so you had, this is what you had before. You had the bank, the person, and the what? And the company, say. And you have down here, you have the truck and the car. So before that, this is what you had. You had a relationship between hada and hada and a relationship between hada and hada. Again, between this one and this one and this one and this one. Again, between this one and this one and this one and this one. طبعا لازم تعمل لك diamond هنا طبعا diamond. I just didn't put it يعني. So this is what you had. So too many relationships. So what did he say? Oh, okay, I'm not going to do too many relationships. I'm just going to make one relationship. But how do you do that? This way. So you create an extra entity here. Okay, that was never before there, yani. And then this will be a union of these 3. So take these 3 and make a union of them. So this is a union of this. So you make a union of these 3 and you put them here. The same thing also. Take the union of these 2 and make a new union entity. So we had a union entity. And so this is a union of these 2, of this one and this one. This is a union of what? Of these 3. But this was never before here. It was never before here. Then just replace all those relationships only by one what? By one relationship. Yes. So that's the idea.
It's clear now. I remember this.
Okay, very good. Anyone else who was not present last time? ولا ما فهمش حاجة? Do you have any question يا شباب? Okay. So what I did was I want to map this one now. I want to map it. So how do I map it? I'm going to create a table for this, a table for this, and a table for this. But these columns are so different from each other, you cannot really put them in one union. So what you do is you add an extra column here, add extra column here. This is a logical design, Shabab, and add an extra column here. So this is what it looks like in the conceptual design after you create this union and union. But in the logical design, you have to do it in a different way. What you do is you add column in a real column, another real column, and another real column, and the same column here. So this column will be the same as this column here and the same column. So let me do it quickly for you. I will do it. So you create a union and you create another union. طبعا هنا. Then what do? You create an extra column here. The same extra column here. That's all you have to do, the same extra column here. So لو كان عندك 2 صاروا 3، لو كان عندك 4 صاروا 5، they were 6 they became and so on يعني. Now the name of this column must be the same as the name of this column must be the same as the name of this column. Now the same column also we will add it here. So we will have also the same column here. So this column here is the same as this column here, is the same as this column here, is the same as this column here. So in the logical design, you have to create this entity, but make sure that this column is the same as this column and this column. Now also make sure that the values in this column will always be what? Distinct values. So let's say I had 10 banks. Then I will just make this one 1, 2, 3, 4 up to 10. Simply, just make sure they are distinct. Yeah. And the same thing, if you have, let's say, 10 companies, just make sure this is 1, 2, 3, 4 up to 10. Make them distinct. The same thing here, if you have 10 persons, just make them 1 up to 10 and so on. Yani. Make sure they are distinct. Yani. Then put the 10 companies. So put 10 companies 1 up to 10. Then put also the 10 banks 1 up to 10 in this table كلهم in this column يعني. And put another 1 to 10 also. So put from 1 to 10, 1 to 10, 1 to 10 3 times. But the first 1 to 10 belong to the bank. So active bank. So this is what you will have. You will have owner ID bank. The second owner ID also bank. The third owner ID bank and so on. So 10 owner IDs, 10 banks. Then another owner ID for the company, another owner ID for the company. So this table will contain 30 rows and 2 columns. So the first column is going to be the owner ID. The second column is whether it is bank or person or company and so on. So that's how this one will look like at the end when you populate it by when you put the values into it. The same thing here also. So I want to put a union of this, and this is a union of these 2. This was a union of these 3, صحيح? Now, what about this? This is a union of these 2. So what I do is the following. I'm going to create an extra column here, an extra column here. Let me put them in different color, معلش. Okay. So that you don't confuse this with this one. So they are totally different. يعني. A different column here, a different column here, and this is a union of them. So this is car, and this is vehicle. So what do? I create here, suppose I have 5 cars and 5 vehicles. Put all the 5 cars here and the 5 vehicles here. So this column will contain 10 values. Now for the first 5, put car in this column. And for the second 5, put vehicle in this column. So this is how you create a union out of these 2. And this is a union out of these 3. Then all you have to do is just make a relationship between this union and that union. That's what you have to do. Is this point clear, Shabab? Well, do you want more explanation? So how many tables have I created? I had only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tables. Now I added what? I made this one a table. I made this one a table with extra column. I made this one a table with extra column. I made this one a table with extra column. I made this one a table with extra column. Then I created a new table with 2 columns. The first column is the same as this extra column. I also created this, which is also another new table I created. So it will also have 2 columns. The first one is the same as this red column, and this one is the second one. Yani. Then make a relationship between this one and this one. So how many tables have I created? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This was the original. Then I added 2. So they became how many? 9 tables. Instead of how many tables? Instead of, sorry, 7 tables now. 7 tables instead of how many tables? Instead of 5 tables. معي ولا شباب? Okay, so this is what I did. Up to this point, is this clear, Shabab, or you have any question?
I have a question, Doctor.
Yes, please.
Why you added another column?
For this one?
Yes.
You can do the following. What you can do is you can make this one only 1 column, isn't it?
Yes.
But make sure that the numbers here, they will start from 1 up to 10. For example, if you have 10 rows, then this one starts from 11 up to, let's say, 20. Then make sure this one starts from 21 and so on. Otherwise, you will have overlap in the numbers and you would not know whether the 1 comes from here. لو عندك هنا from 1 to 10, 1 to 10, 1 to 10. So you don't know which this one. Does he belong to the bank or does he belong to this one? You don't know that information.
Yes, yes.
Okay, that makes sense to you?
Yes, it now makes sense. Thank you.
Any other question, Ashab? Thank you for the question. That's a good question. Any other question?
دكتور
Yes, please.
ما في تيبل ثامن الحين عشان الريليشن.
Very good. نشوف الريليشن هي many to many ولا ايش؟
هي many to many.
لازم يكون عندنا تيبل برضه حتكون هذا تيبل. Thank you very much. So this will be a table. So this is table number 8. Number what? Number 8. So I will have 8 tables. But this table is because of the relation. Many to many, you know already, it's always a table. But what will this contain? It will contain all these 2 columns. So I will have 2 columns here. So this is the red column. سميها ما مشكلة عشان ايش تكون واضحة. So I will have the 2 red columns here. اللي هو owner ID and the owner type سميها. And I will also have the 2 columns from what? From this one. So this is a vehicle ID, and this is going to be the vehicle, what they call type, whether it's a car or what, or a vehicle. سميها locomotive, whatever you give it a name يعني. Now, do we have extra columns للتيبل هذه ولا ما عندنا؟ نشوف كده. Oh, it has 2 row زيادة. What? It is many to many صحيح, but it has also what? Its own what? Attribute صحيح, isn't it? So if it has its own attributes, yes. So what I have to do is, again, I have to add another 2 attributes هنا زيادة 2 attributes. So this will be 6 columns هنا. So this will contain 6 columns at table هذه. So I'm going to have 8 tables يا شباب. From the original 5 tables, I will create a table from each يعني. So that's 5 tables, definitely. Then I have 2 unions. This is a union for the vehicles and the car, and this is a union for the bank, company, and so on. So I have 2 unions. And I have a many-to-many relationship. So that also will be a table. So 1 table here, the 2nd table here, the 3rd table here, table number 4, table number 5, table number 6, table number 7, and table number 8. Any question, Shabab? Any question? Okay, I will assume you understood. يعني if you don't ask me, I will not know يعني يا شباب. Okay. ترى أي مدرس متمقلب في نفسه يعني he thinks يعني he makes students understand. Do you understand يا شباب؟ عشان كده if you don't tell me أنا حتمقلب يعني. I'll think I'm doing well. Okay.
You're doing well, Dr.
Oh, hopefully. Thank you very much. Okay, so what did I do up to now? Let me just clean this. It's recorded, yani, so don't worry, you'll see it in the recording. Now, what I want to do is I discussed 2 things for you. I discussed this and this. I discussed this. So how to map a union or a category into from conceptual. This is conceptual, from conceptual into the logical. And I hope you understood that one. This is what I did today, since morning. I also did this last week. I did this one last week, isn't it? And here I did explain, you make a table, you make another table, you make another table, you make another table, but there are many options, but the best option is make them 4 tables. There is only one thing remaining now. What about if I have a shared subclass? Like this. Like this. This is a shared subclass, okay? So what do I do? Now this is what you do. Let me just map all of this for you, Shabab. This will be a table. Are you with me, Shabab? This will be a table with 2 columns. This will be a table also with 2 columns. If I have secretary type and speed, technician grade, this will be also a table with 2 columns. And so on. I don't know. This is this. Maybe I don't know. Maybe if it has its own attribute, and this also will be a table with 2 columns. The first one is SSN. The second one is whatever the attribute is here. لو في attribute. The same thing here. Also, I don't know how many columns this will have. But we don't know how many columns this one have. But one of the columns definitely is called SSN. So I will create a table out of this also. There must be SSN, and if there has any extra columns, also put them here. But all the columns which are here, keep them there. They are common. The same thing here also. If there is an extra column here, so this will be also 2 columns. One is SSN and one is a new column. Whatever, if this one is a column. If this one maybe 2 the other columns لو عنده هذا مثلا, this will be how many columns يا شباب? It will be 3 columns, isn't it? SSN and this one and this one. Yes. What about this one? If it has an extra column here, what do you think this now? This is a shared subclass. معايا ولا يا شباب?
Yes.
Okay, so what you do is the following. Take the SSN and take this column وخلاص. Are you with me يا شباب? Put that column here ومع السلامة. Only 2 columns. Because the manager has one SSN, صحيح?
Right, yeah. And
So
engineer.
this is more specialization for a manager, engineer manager. So any information about him is already في الparents موجود يعني. As engineer, I will find more information about him here. As employee, I will find all the information about the employees here. As a manager, I will find his manager here. So I have to go back to his parents, okay, to find out more about him يعني. So the attributes which are here, the attributes which is here, the attributes which are here, the attributes which are here, also they belong to him, but we don't put them in the table. We just put what? The SSN وخلاص. Any question here يا شباب? Any question يا شباب? So let me summarize this one quickly for you. Before I do that one, assume I have an extra column here. Assume I have an extra column here. Assume I have an extra column here. And we know there is an extra column here already, صحيح? Technician grade and secretary's type and speed وكل حاجة. And assume I have 1 column here. Now I asked you to map this. Make this one convert it from what? From conceptual into what? Into logical. What do you do? Make this one a table. Make this one a table with 2 columns. The first column is SSN, the second column is a secretary typing speed. مثلا. Make this one 2 columns, SSN and whatever the column this one is. Make this one 2 columns, whatever SSN, whatever this column is. Make this one 2 columns, SSN, whatever this column is. Make this one 2 columns, SSN, whatever the column is. Make this one 2 columns, whatever SSN, whatever this column is. Make this one also 2 column, okay, SSN, whatever this column is. As simple as that. Okay, Sheba? So what did we do? We created a separate table for engineer managers. We created a separate table for salaried. We created a separate table for hourly employees. We created a separate, just purely for managers, they have a separate table, but it has only 2 columns. The same thing for secretaries, the same thing for engineers, for technicians. This contains all the common columns between them, like their first names, last names, كل حاجة حيكون في التable هذه. So how many tables? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 tables. Any question, Shabab, up to this point? Any question?
No, clear.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we are done with this chapter. Okay, so let's go to the next chapter. I'm a little bit behind, so I'm going to go a little bit fast. But what I'll do is I'm going to stop the recording of this so that they, when I put them in the recording, so they will be separate tapes, and I will make a new recording for the new one. So let me just stop this recording.